The ayes are 67, the nays are 32. The bill is passed.
There are a number of us who feel very strongly that this is a significant weakening of the tools that were put in place in the wake of 9/11 to protect the country.
Well, yesterday the Senate voted overwhelmingly in favor of the USA Freedom Act, ending the NSA's bulk collection of phone record data, and that's a great place to start this roundtable.
It is. And please welcome to the Wednesday Roundtable political columnist Liz Peek and Newsmax chief political columnist and White House correspondent John Gizzi, wearing the fedora today, looking nice. Thank you both for joining us today.
All right, John, so now
Thanks
phone
for
records are going to be kept eventually by these phone companies, but the NSA can continue their bulk phone record data collection for 30 days. Is this a victory for American citizen, restoring some trust here, or do you think this has been overblown?
Well, I do think that a lot of the concerns about government being all-powerful have been assuaged by this act. And along with the points you mentioned about the limiting of wiretaps, warrants are now required for the seizure of phone records, and the so-called secret courts, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act provides these courts, FISA courts, their records are going to become a little more open to the public. This certainly satisfied a number of people because remember, when the USA Freedom Act was first voted on in November, only 4 Republican senators backed it. Now it passed 67 to 32 with bipartisan support. But it also reveals a division among Senate Republicans and Republicans in general. Some take the position of the Majority Leader McConnell that we're weakened. Others believe liberty has been the victor in this, such as the other senator from Kentucky. Yeah. We'll see how their Kentucky feud plays out.
Yeah, it's hard to believe, Liz, that Kentuckians could vote 2 people into office that have such disparate views on this issue. But what's your take on this? I mean, do you feel like you were ever impacted personally by the NSA's bulk phone record collection? And do you feel more secure that the all-powerful government has been reined in a little bit?
No and no. I think that I'm really kind of disgusted with the whole thing, this way this issue has been handled, both in terms of Congress and the media, and here's why. I do think that this agreement effectively does weaken the NSA's ability to intercept and break up these terrorist communication cells. That said, if James Clapper had not lied to the American people about what the NSA was up to, if this hadn't all been done in a secretive and dishonest way, we wouldn't be where we are today. It is not Republicans versus Republicans on this issue. It's Americans who are divided on this issue. And unfortunately, there's a great deal of misinformation out there. People think the NSA is actually tapping your phone and recording your conversation. Frankly, my conversations are beyond banal. I couldn't care less if anyone taps them, but obviously they shouldn't be doing that, and guess what? They weren't. I would say one other thing, which is that the White House and the NSA did a particularly terrible job of making the case for this program. Where's the evidence that it has been useful? I mean, it might, you know, boy, if you're trying to sell something and this is the best you can do, you don't deserve to win this round. And in my view, they really didn't.
Yeah, we talked about that. Why didn't the White House do a better job of bringing in members of Congress that have that security clearance and helping them sell this is why it was really necessary. But John, let's also talk about, you know, Liz mentioned this was not Republicans versus Republicans, but it also we saw some people come together at the last minute. We have a picture, I believe, of Patrick Leahy and Mike Lee, 2 guys who you normally wouldn't see cavorting together, almost about to give each other a bro hug here. But talk to us about how this was actually walked across the finish line in the U.S. Senate, considering there was so many people supporting these amendments, I guess even just as late as yesterday morning.
The pivotal moment would have been Sunday when Senator Paul repeatedly frustrated the senior senator from his state and others and made it clear that in no way, shape, or form was Congress going to reauthorize the Patriot Act without some kind of qualifications. And I believe that was one point where Democrats were ready to move and a few Republicans who were on the fence were ready to join them, and they finally had enough votes to move it on. Now, regarding what Liz says, it is certainly Americans having disagreements on this, but I would say we have not heard the last of it. Senator Rubio put out a very strong statement denouncing passage of the USA Freedom Act. He voted against it. Senator Paul is claiming a major victory, particularly after his 10.5-hour filibuster. They are both seeking the Republican nomination for president, so we haven't heard the last of it.
Go ahead, Liz.
I think, John, that's what's so discouraging to me, that politics really, I mean, I'm not naive. I understand that this was a huge political moment for Rand Paul, but the reality is this deal is not very good. I mean, yes, the phone companies will be expected to gather this data, but apparently there is no requirement for them to do so. McConnell has been painted gleefully, of course, by both the right and the left as having really bungled this, and I think the whole issue of timing was very badly done. But he's
Liz,
right.
we got to wrap it up because we got to go to a commercial break.
Deal.
Guys, let's take a brief pause. We'll be right back after this short break. We'll pick it up.
Time now for round two of our roundtable, and we continue our conversation with Newsmax White House correspondent John Gizzi and political columnist Liz Peek. And Liz, I'm so sorry that we had to cut you off. I wanted you to be able to finish your thought and articulate it with a little bit more time on the clock, so go.
Oh, well, I was just really referencing the fact that everyone has sort of landed on Mitch McConnell for having handled this situation poorly, but really there hasn't been nearly as much discussion as there should be about what he was trying to achieve. What he was trying to achieve is, yes, let's make it so that maybe the phone companies are collecting this data, but the reality is now the way it stands, as I read this legislation, they don't have to do that. So we've actually lost something in this, and instead of covering what we've lost, if you look at the newspaper coverage, for example, it's all about Mitch McConnell's political chops or how this worked for Rand Paul. Come on, our national security is what we're talking about here. That's a little bit more than more important than scoring points politically.
Good point, Liz.
And you raised a point about James Clapper too, Liz, and I think that's an important one too. When he got caught in that lie, and then of course there was more fervor from the American public as to get to the bottom of this, and here's the result. And going back to what Rand Paul was saying, I don't know if he was a winner in all this based on the response to his self-described hyperbole that he used there on the floor of the Senate.
And will it translate into votes? We were talking to somebody that said it.
May I just point out to you that the USA Freedom Act, its genesis is the ruling by the Second Circuit Court of Appeals against bulk collection of information. This was made as a follow-up piece of legislation to a court decision that wounded a section of the Patriot Act. So it's not a question of what Mitch McConnell did or what appears very weak coming out of the Senate. It was a response to something that came down from a court. And it also passed in the House of Representatives with only 88 dissenting votes.
Yeah, and that goes.
My point really, sorry.
No, go. You're right, Liz, and I think we're going to say the same thing.
We're talking, too much politics and not enough substance.
Yeah, and we did not hear enough of what John just said there throughout the course of the debate on this issue, and I think that maybe would have skewed things and made it less political, perhaps, as well. Much more to talk about, including Mike Huckabee.
Yeah, let's talk about Mike Huckabee. First, he takes to social media to defend Josh Duggar after molestation charges came to light, and now this was uncovered.
Now, I wish someone had told me when I was in high school that I could have felt like a woman when it came time to take showers in PE. I'm pretty sure I would have found my feminine side and said, "Coach, I think I'd rather shower with the girls today."
This video from a 2015 speech, Liz, Huckabee is clearly vying for the evangelical vote. Does his defense of the Duggars and his comments on Bruce Jenner, now Caitlyn Jenner, help him?
Look, I think this was meant to be a lighthearted moment, challenging sort of the orthodoxy of how seriously we're dealing with this issue of transgenders, who, by the way, are 700,000 people at most in the United States. And I think, after this whole Caitlyn Jenner thing, I think maybe people are just a little bit tired of feeling like this is the most important topic of the day. Anyway, look, he's going to get, scarred for this. There's no question about it. It sounds like he's not taking people seriously who have this this preference of being a transgender. But again, I mean, you know, look, we're in campaign season. It's gotcha time. This is a gotcha moment for Huckabee. I don't think it's going to have much impact on what I don't think is a terribly important campaign or serious campaign. I don't mean he's not serious. I don't think it goes anywhere. So to me, this is just sort of like, okay, that happened. Let's move on.
John Gizzi, your thoughts?
Well, yeah. As a newsman who's a little less young than I used to be, I can tell you this is what we call a one-day story. And there will be some criticism of him. It will be bandied about a little more so than a generation ago because of social media, and then it will be forgotten. I will say, as someone who covered Governor Huckabee when he won the Iowa caucuses in 2008, people who are still committed to him after 8 years, when he has not been active in politics but more a media fixture, those people are going to vote for him no matter what he says about Bruce and or Caitlyn Jenner.
All right, there you have it.
I know,
I think
it's
you're
true. I
probably
just
right
don't
on that,
think
though.
there are
I mean,
many.
he is not trying to appeal to the crowd that would support Caitlyn. So
He was trying to appeal to the crowd that was listening to him speak in
Right.
that particular case. And I don't know if I agree with John, particularly because we know the Duggars are doing a big interview on
I think
Fox
that
News
will hurt him
tonight.
more.
And that part of this may come back to haunt him later on. We'll see about that. We don't know for sure. But for the time being, we'll say goodbye to John Gizzi and Liz Peek. Thank you both very much for being with us. Interesting topics to say the least today. And we'll have you back again very soon for another conversation.
Thanks so much.
John, keep wearing that
Thank
hat.
you very much for having me.
always, yeah, I think you're right. I think the Duggar family issue is going to hurt him more because that is an issue that does offend a lot of evangelical Christians, and not just evangelical, but Christians in general.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I'll leave it at that.
Hey, I like that. Can my husband do that? Hope
More
you're
coming
watching.
up right after this.